Perfectionist.
Oh,
Totally
yeah,
receive
I
that.
know, right? Yeah, I'm such a recovering perfectionist. You have no idea.
And it's a
Work in progress.
journey.
Oh,
That it is.
it's the worst.
That it
I
definitely
try
is.
not to pass it on to my kids, but I think my daughter has it, so we're
I
working on
mean,
it.
art.
It's so
Perfectionist
hard.
in recovery.
Yeah, we really
That
are.
probably
I know.
explains so much of my journey for sure.
Well, we're going to talk about your journey. In fact, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit now, and I'm going to just take a little bit out of your bio so our
Yeah,
listeners
sure.
can know a little bit about who the Rashio. You just your energy is just you radiate. And
Thank
I
you.
am definitely a moth to a flame, people like that. So I knew that we had to have you on to talk. So,
Yeah, so grateful.
Rashia Bell, you are the co founder of the Crystalline and Re-Vityl. You are an energetic interior designer, a crystal healer, somatic movement, bodywork practitioner, and luxury spa and hotel consultant. She has over 15 years in the wellness space. She also started out as a professional ballerina. You recently brought in Re-Vityl, which we want to know more about, and our listeners definitely want to know more about, which is a holistic luxury sleep company. You attended FIT, the New York School of Interior Design. You are currently in Oahu, but you are also currently the resident healer and meditation master with the Four Seasons in Philadelphia. Yay! New York City. We can find you everywhere from Costa Rica to Hawaii, helping thousands of people find inner peace as well as new ways to heal. So I really wanted to have you on. And when I talked about you to Hillary, she agreed because we talk a lot on Life Gloss about beauty on the outside, but Hillary and I both have an invested interest and passion for beauty on the inside. A deep dive with you today.
I love
So
that.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
Welcome. We're
for
so
having me.
happy. We're
I know, we're so
thrilled.
excited.
We can't wait to hear more.
It's been
It
an
really is.
intricate for sure.
Yeah. So
So
let's
tell us,
start there. Yeah.
how did you go from dance to holistic healing and holistic health?
Yeah, well, there were definitely about 10 other things probably in between that. So it wasn't a direct route. I started ballet at the age of 2. I started training with the Pennsylvania Ballet at the age of 5. And my trajectory and the discipline that instills within you, I think probably also kind of leads to a lot of the versatility that I've had within my career. But my dancing career was unfortunately cut short because I was injured. I stress fractured my back. And so while I always knew that the plan was to go to New York City and the plan was to dance, also, college was always on the roadmap as well, especially since dancing has such a short lifespan. So I knew I wanted to be in New York City, and I knew that I always had an interest in fashion and luxury and things like that. So the original plan was to kind of pursue those simultaneously. It deviated obviously to focusing a bit more on the non-dancing career pursuits. Ultimately, what really led me to sort of holistic work that I do now is healing from the trauma of the loss of a career that is built from a true passion, a career that also is something that not everybody can do when you talk about dancing or ballet in particular. And so, there really was a grieving process that took place over the course of sort of many years in trying to figure out what would sort of fill that void or fill that space. And I never felt like the jobs that I had were sort of doing that. And, I was very lucky. My career in New York City, sort of within luxury, started off within jewelry. I worked for Mikimoto. And that almost was the seed that was planted in this future sort of holistic life in the way that I work with stones and in the way that I work with energy in particular as a crystal healer. You were sort of getting those cues and clues, but you weren't really sure exactly how they were to take shape. I knew at that point I wasn't destined to be a jewelry designer. And so I became a cosmetic buyer, which is something that I did for about 10 years, working with various companies. But I always really enjoyed being around product. I loved um, being in that conception phase. I loved being in that creator role in sort of seeing products and things come to fruition. And so I also knew that I wanted to work for myself. When I decided to go back to school to become an interior designer, it was really focused on that. And then immediately when I finished, by simultaneously working and being in school, the economy crashed. We entered a recession, and I felt like, oh, here you are at this like juxtaposition again, where life sort of isn't working out as planned, right? And I think sort of having gone through that a couple of times, that's what's really set me sort of head first into sort of an inner journey and really exploring a multitude of things. And it really started off from the vantage point of sort of working through those things myself, whether it was through therapy or life coaching or somatic work, which I wouldn't necessarily advise for everyone because it can be pretty intense, but that was my particular approach. And then that unearthed my interest in stones that I had when I was even working in jewelry and wanting to think about other ways that I could incorporate them. And so I started to think about how I could piece them together from an energetic perspective when we talk about design and spaces and how they make people feel, which also kind of led me to getting to work one on one with clients and really realizing that understanding what was happening with their energy is a beautiful way for understanding the type of space that you need to create for them. But then has sort of, yeah, just permeated into this world where I've been able to have all these different touch points of ways to connect with people and energy, both be it one on one or within their spaces. That's the abridged version of the 9 lives that I've lived.
You know what I love about this as I'm listening to you talk through this? The first thing is, I think as women, we often talk about how we reinvented ourselves, right? There seems to be a big thing now, like, oh, we're
Yes.
reinventing ourselves, or we're older now, or we're going to do this now. You didn't. You evolved.
Mm,
That's number one. Number two, you listened. You listened to your inner voice. You listened to the signs, right? You saw them, but you listened and you paid attention because your story just, it was like everything just connected,
yeah.
you know, from what was maybe something that you thought, that grieving process, which I want to talk more about, going through an injury and then having to change your trajectory, and that's evolving, right?
Right.
And I think that is such a beautiful thing. And I love how you really listened to yourself, you honored yourself, you sort of said, I don't need to reinvent myself, I just need to pay attention to all these signs. And there set forth your whole entire career, and it all just makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know
You
what I
And
mean?
it's go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say,
It's
of course, when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't feel that way, right? As though
Right.
you're going against, everything that perhaps seems logical, right? But yes, I think ultimately, as I got older, I'm someone that's always been really tapped into my intuition, and it's hard for me to kind of turn the volume down on that. And so I found that when I stopped resisting against that, honestly, that is exactly like you said, when things started to sort of find that flow and started to find the ways that they just naturally began to link together without me kind of having to force it. But I definitely didn't know that I saw it from that vantage point for sure in the moment.
It's so interesting. I think that your message will really strike a note with people that might feel
So,
like they've had a loss, a failure, because it's not always an injury. Sometimes, you know, we identify losses that we don't have control over, or we do, and we just say, well, if it's changed and it wasn't this big, magnificent exit, it was a failure. And it's not always that way. These are transitions and they can be blessings and they can be hardships. And I think that maybe this has probably stopped a few people that were expecting this to be a fluffy, healing, crystal sort of an
yeah.
episode to pause if they're listening in their cars, turn it up and pay more
Right.
attention. Or if they're at home, maybe buckle up and say, whoa, this is going much deeper than I thought. So thank you for going right there with us.
No, I
Yeah.
To
appreciate
your
that.
voice.
And I can share that, as a sort of very grounded Capricorn energy person that always sort of had this bar, essentially that they were chasing for themselves, I 100% perceive them as failures in the moment. And then you start to kind of piece together, why is there this sort of reoccurring theme, right? And yes, of course, there are a lot of things that were out of my control. I didn't know that I was going to get injured. I didn't know I was going to have the loss of a parent. I didn't know a recession was going to happen. But ultimately, I think when you can move away from that sort of mindset, that really is where you do start to find kind of that ease within life. Let me try the thing that I haven't tried, which essentially was let me release the control and release the thought that things had to be this specific way because you
Yeah.
didn't achieve that, you're destined to continue to follow that. And so maybe it comes from a little bit of stubbornness as well, but it definitely took me a little bit of time to get to that place. Like, okay, I'm going to try the one thing that I haven't done is to surrender,
Right.
essentially.
There's a lot
Yeah,
to
and
be
I think
said
you
in surrendering.
yeah. Yeah. And you talked about, you know, grief, and we often think about, especially as we get older, right? Because this is our listener, right? We're older women listening predominantly.
Mm,
This is our listener. And I've learned as I've gotten older, and I don't know how you all feel about this, but as I've gotten older, I've learned grief is really such a powerful tool that is in many ways very positive because it does open
yeah,
us up to knowing new possibilities, right? And when we grieve something, it doesn't have to be in sadness. Like we've all set out in our lives with different things. You know,
hmm,
I was supposed to be a very famous actress by now, right?
hmm,
So, with millions of fans around the world. And there comes a point in your life where you do look back, and that's one of the gifts of getting older, right? And you look back and you say, I do need to come to peace with it. Come to peace with it. Grieve it. Let it go. Whatever you want to call it, but it's not a bad thing. It's like you have to say, you know what? That didn't happen for me. But you know what did happen for me? This happened for me, and that happened for me, and that path. And so I think that sometimes we get stuck in our own way
for
because we're
sure.
busy grieving incorrectly. You offer so many services, and we've talked about this off camera. And sound bath, the coming to someone's home and actually installing crystals in their floors, doing one-on-one client work. I mean, you do so much in the world of healing and wellness. Do you have a favorite aspect of that you like doing? Is there something that you're like, I love everything that I do, and I really enjoy this aspect of what I do, especially with the crystalline?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and I think it's so hard to answer because I do feel like I kind of am that person that has kind of those multiple personalities in the sense and likes to kind of obviously have their hands in quite a few things. Life would probably be a lot simpler. I think for me, honestly, like the favorite thing is the connection. And so the connection to the clients that I have. And so I think it's less about the specific service that I'm providing for them. I
Okay.
mean, don't get me wrong. It's fun to just like bring the magic and bring the crystals. And, I'm going to show up at your house with 10,000 pounds of stones and we're going to install them in the bottom of your swimming pool. How could that not be fun? I
Oh
think
my God, I can't
ultimately,
wait to do that one day with you.
I would love,
I can't wait.
but no, I think it's really like through those various service, the connections, the relationships that you form, and really sort of being able to be a conduit for someone's energetic expression. And so for some people, that
Yeah.
happens in a really powerful way in a one on one healing experience. I'm also a birth doula now. So sometimes it's literally
Oh,
being there when a baby is born, which is just, of course, pure magic, and how you're able to support and hold space for people in that way. And so, yeah, other times it's getting to be creative and being able to design the crystal jewelry or whatever that may be. And so I feel really lucky that I get to wear so many different hats that can really interact and resonate with people in a lot of different ways.
that's so cool.
Do you find it common that your client path, and this is sort of off topic, but I would imagine that if I were staying at the Four Seasons and I was lucky enough to schedule something with you and had an experience with you, then I'd want to bring you home to, take a look at my environment. If I were having a child, I'd want you to be involved in that. So do you find that, you have this keep first touch point with a client and then you become more and more engaged in their life as they go through different phases? It seems natural.
Yes, yes, 100%. And sometimes it's not clear at that first point of meeting, what the ripple effect will be. And sometimes that process is over the course of years. I have a client that I probably first met almost 10 years ago when she started buying products from me, and then was interested in coming on wellness retreats that I was doing. And then now is like, hey, I'm creating a beautiful yoga space and I'm ready for you to come in and work your crystal magic. So I think the entry points can be sort of really different, but I think what's really beautiful is sort of the ripple effects that you have. And I think that's the lovely thing, is how you can sort of support clients as they move through their own evolution, right? And that's kind of exactly what you shared in the beginning as being the common thread. So it's nice to weave that into other people's lives as well.
I love that, working with someone, maybe helping them give birth. And then all of a sudden you're like, laying crystals in the child's room or the nursery. And
Hmm.
then that couple goes on a retreat and you see them there. I love that you have so many different points of connection that you can make because you do offer so many different services. And you get to work at such amazing properties.
Yeah.
I've stayed at many of the properties that you have worked at. Hopefully in the future it'll be at the same time
Yes.
that you're there, and we'll make that happen. Do you have a favorite? I won't say a favorite property because you do work with so many different properties and we wouldn't want to say you have a favorite.
Hmm.
But is there a place that you work, so not the actual company or
Yep.
the property, but is there a place geographically that you really are drawn to more than another? I mean, I know you go to so many incredible places, but is there one that you're like, I really, really, really,
Yeah,
really love it there?
for sure. I think for me, one of the places that was such sort of a really pivotal part in my own healing journey, and also in when I first started hosting my own retreats, was being in Colombia. And I actually even lived there in Medellin for about a year and a half. But I've found that there's like this common thread. And more recently now, I've been spending a lot of time in Costa Rica. And so for me in particular, the thread that sort of weaves between them are these places that are sort of rich in this volcanic energy. And there's no surprise that I live in Hawaii because that is one of those. So for me, there's something about
Right.
regions that have that energy of that particular land. Volcanic energy is energy of transformation. There's a reason why I called my retreat sort of tropical transformation, because I felt like that was what they were really promoting. And so I think when we're in spaces and beautiful places that have that energy, those are the ones that really feel most resonant for me. And those are the ones I think ultimately that I see within my clients, that they're able to really tap into that resonance in such a lovely way.
That's so
Incredible.
interesting.
And when we've talked a lot about crystals, and it's a key part, clearly. It's important for you. It's a cornerstone for so much of what you do. I'd love to learn more about your relationship with crystals
Mhm.
and the crystalline training that you receive. So for anyone listening that, is new to this, what are we talking about?
Yeah, for sure. So
No.
for me, crystals and working with mineral energy are about a resonance with nature, ultimately. And so I think when we live in these cities, oftentimes we find ourselves devoid in that, right? That's why we go on the retreat, or, that's why we're like, get me to the mountains so I can just breathe that fresh air. And so when working with stones, for me, I think having something that's tactile is just a really beautiful reminder of your connection to mindfulness and your connection to nature, And all ancient civilizations had stones that they really revered for their energetic properties. So I think I also sort of always impart like this isn't just something new and trendy because everyone's into yoga and Pilates and like all the things. This is something that our ancestors resonated with, right? So for me, it's also a connection to history. It's a connection to the lineages that exist sort of within nature. But ultimately, minerals hold different energies just based on how they're created by the earth. And so if we talked about transformation and that sort of volcanic energy, and obsidian is a stone that comes from that. That's going to have a very different energy than something that you find in the Arctic Circle, right? Just sort of in how the earth birthed it. And so I think when we really look to these things, whether it's the stones that we're wearing in our jewelry, which is really a beautiful reminder of that connection to the energy that we can have when we wear certain pieces, but we can also bring them into our spaces. We can also have them as those visual reminders, right? If you're someone that perceives them as beauty, then you can treat them the same way that you do as art, but also you're having that frequency of nature within your space. And so when I sort of set out to integrate them into my interior design, there wasn't a place to go to for that. There wasn't a formula. There wasn't, we of course are familiar with feng shui when we talk about interior design and spaces and ways that
Right.
we can look at energy. And stones are a beautiful part of that as well. Also, in traditional East Indian culture, Vastu Shastra, stones are also a part of their sort of organic planning to how you think about spaces. So, there's also history sort of within that there, but there wasn't a school, there wasn't a place to see how you can incorporate that and merge it with interior design. And so I just set out initially to really learn about stones. I had a chance encounter where I had just come back from the gem shows and I was in LA, and I had heard about a beautiful showroom there that used to be there called Place 8 Healing. And the founder was launching a jewelry line, and so I was sharing with her some of my background in jewelry, and she's like, if you really want to learn about stone energy, here's who you should study with. And she recommended Katrina Raphael, who has written many books on the crystal healing, sort of dating back to the 70s. But she has a school called the Crystal Academy for Advanced Healing Arts. And so with that information, I said, okay, I'm going to learn about that. And so over the course of about 10 years, I did 3 trainings with them. Obviously, you have to have a lot of one-on-one practicum work as you're evolving throughout that. And so that really gave me the foundation to learn about stones, to learn about their energy, to learn about how an individual's energy can resonate with that. And then from that point, I took it upon myself to see how to work with it in spaces. And it's really kind of just been this organic thing, really, over the past 10 plus years. And because every individual's energy is different. So even though you sort of have a loose
Yep.
template for, oh, okay, this stone is calming, how one person connects to that energy is going to be very different. Beautiful
Right.
thing about that is that
Yeah.
it is a constant learning process.
Specifically as a medium, holds so much energy and so much power. But, so many of our listeners have heard, oh, use amethyst for this or use, this for that. But it is so personal to your
It
point.
is.
Like how you respond to turquoise is going to be very different than how I respond to turquoise or, lapis, or we could go on and on and on. But thinking about that, if you had to generalize, just generally thinking, for some of our listeners that are out there right now and thinking to themselves, I know a little bit about, maybe I want to get a gift for myself or do something, is there a sort of crystal that every woman over the age of 40 or women going through menopause or going through transition is for our listeners out there, is there a particular crystal or a couple of different crystals that you would recommend would be a good place to start if they're
Yes,
interested
for
before reaching out
sure.
and finding you?
I think there really are kind of 2 camps that feel most resonant, especially within this hectic, hyper technological focused world that we live in today. And I think those are stones that are for clearing energy and stones that are for grounding. because I find we're either on
Yes.
one side of it. Either we're like super sluggish and we're feeling heavy and we don't want to get out of bed, or our mind is spinning and racing and we just can't ground because we're 10 steps ahead of everything and we can't just shut off, or we're glued to these devices and things like that. Exactly. Or both, right? And I think we
Both.
like vacillate between that throughout the day where we can really feel that in any moment. And especially when you're talking women of a certain age and perimenopause or menopause, you're going through that like full spectrum.
Right.
I think definitely when you talk about grounding stones like black tourmaline, like obsidian that I mentioned, like smoky quartz, the common theme with them, they also are going to be your darker colored stones. Tend to have a bit more denser energy, tend to have energy that has the ability to transmute, also to absorb some of those electromagnetic frequencies and things, because a lot of times that's what's really affecting us. It's that we're glued to this tech 24/7. So on the grounding sort of camp, those are stones that I would recommend. And they're also really useful when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling overwhelmed,
Right.
when we need to just kind of settle our energy. And then on the flip side, when we're feeling like super low energy and super heavy, stones to think about when we're clearing energy or for clearing spaces. And so your clear quartz, your selenite is one of my favorite stones because it's a salt-based stone. So it's sort of giving that same effect that we feel when we're in the ocean, when we're in salt water, when you're just able to kind of float and sort of have that weight kind of taken off of you. Selenite is sort of the energetic car wash crystal, as I like to call it, in that it works
Writing
to
with
sort of lighten energy as well.
I love
Interesting.
that.
What about something like a citrine or like a labradorite? Do those count as like opposites? Like the labradorite would be
So it
darker, maybe.
depends. Not quite. Your citrine is going to be energy activating. So, that's
Okay.
for your 4 p.m. when you want to reach for that coffee, or you want to spark creativity. Citrine aligns with the solar plexus energy. So it's very much about kind of like balancing those systems. So on those extremes, that spark plug, that jump start when you
Okay.
look to your sort of golden energy stones. Labradorite is a highly intuitive stone. That one can take on a lot of different energies. It's the stone of sort of magic, especially in all of
Ah,
those beautiful colors that you see within it. It's sort of like in the eye of the beholder, right? And what you sort of observe. And so for some people that can be really beautiful for sort of dream work, in particular when you're sleeping. For others that could be like, I already have like highly active dreams and I don't need anything to make them even more active. I'm already like not getting restful sleep. So to that point in what we said earlier, it's so unique to the individual. Some people sleep
Yeah.
like baby with amethyst on their nightstand. Other people, it's like the most disruptive thing to have in your room. And so, what I always like to share is it's a process of trial and error, and especially within spaces when you're thinking about where you put them, how you use certain stones, move them around, move them throughout your home, see if there's a better place for it that
Yeah.
resonates for you. Don't be fixated on, oh, it's the stone for this thing. Like, I have to have it here because it's going to
okay.
really be unique to each person.
Yeah. And you
Thank
brought
you.
up sleep,
Hmm.
and I wanted to, while we have you for this time, I do want to talk about Revital, because when we first met at our mutual friend Natasha's house, I was so intrigued by this new company that you have going on that really is focused on the fine art of sleep and how important sleep is.
Yeah.
Believe me, it's something that is huge in my house. So, yes, sleep. So tell us about Revital.
Yeah, I mean, it was birthed from really a place of myself being someone that always requires a lot of sleep and not quite always getting that, and how to kind of make that as quality of a sleep as possible. My business partner, Eva Milobrovich, is a mom. And so at the time when we launched, she had very young children. And so she was going through that phase of not sleeping. Both of us were avid travelers. We talked a little about the amount of time within the year that I spend in hotels is quite a bit. And so initially it was really from the vantage point of thinking about how can we support people sort of during travel. But in the lead up to sort of launching the brand, COVID happened and nobody was traveling, but also no one was sleeping. And so that really
True.
created a unique opportunity when you really talk about energy and how you can sort of improve your sleep. And so our hero product is a sleep mask that actually has that crystal tourmaline inside of it. It has an insert, and so tourmaline, as I talked about, acts as that grounding energy zone, and so it sort of function as like that energetic weighted blanket for you when you're sleeping. And so, with my background in beauty, my partner's background also in luxury and cosmetics, we wanted to really create a holistic sleep brand that wasn't, built on taking the meds and the pills and all the things, and that really
Yeah.
talked to a sleep ritual. And so the sleep masks are sort of accented by organic body care and essential oils that have really been crafted and blended to sort of support your sleep journey. But when we talk about sleep, it affects obviously our full day, right? And really, Revital was created from, this essentially how can we revitalize ourselves through our sleep and have those ripple effects all day long.
Sign me up immediately.
Yeah.
We're going to send a link. We're going to place a link so people can
Oh,
find
amazing.
all of your delightful things so
Yes, and we
they
can
can find.
definitely give a little code for listeners to have a little
Oh,
discount courtesy of you guys.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I know our listeners would love that because they will definitely, after listening to this episode, want to go on and see how they can find you as a
Yes.
person and all your services. Where in the world is Rashia, right? These are, they all speak to the different facets of who you are: the
Yeah.
healing, the wellness, the sleep. These are all things that are a part of beauty that we all need. It's not
Yeah,
just external, it's all starts with the inside first, right?
totally. No, and if that does foster any inspiration for anyone that's sort of, evolving on their own journey, it is that reminder of look to yourself first, look to, your own needs, look to what's important to you, where are the gaps, kind of within where you can't find perhaps the products that you are seeking out, because I think that can be, or the experiences as well. I think that can be just a really, yeah, unique launching point for not only creating something that serves you, but creating something that's authentic. And when you start from that place, other people are going to naturally resonate.
So where can people find you? Where are you next?
Yeah, it changes by the day. And it will probably be very different depending on when this actually airs. But I split my time between sort of East and West Coast. When I'm on the East Coast, it's
Yeah.
Philadelphia, New York. So if you do sign up for the Crystalline newsletter, I always notify everyone when I'm passing through and kind of when I'm making rounds through cities, be it Miami or LA. Yes, my hotel residencies or retreats or things are planned a little bit further out. So we're working on next year's schedule already, but some fun, exotic
Oh,
places to come for sure.
ooh,
oh,
well,
I'm so excited. And I
definitely, definitely let me know when you're in Los Angeles.
Yes, I definitely will for
That would
sure.
be wonderful.
I would love to see you.
Yes. And I have to come in and see you at the, shout out to Four Seasons in Philly.
Nah.
Oh, always.
Honestly, I was actually at the Four Seasons downtown New York on my birthday in March for a massage that was also excellent. But I have to tell you, if anyone listening is a Four Seasons junkie as much as I am, I will tell you, yeah,
Yes.
well, we know that,
Yes,
but I
Yeah.
will tell you that the Four Seasons in Philly, I think Bethany Frankel just said it's the most beautiful hotel she's ever seen. And I have to
yeah.
tell you guys, the Four Seasons in Philly is worth a trip to Philly,
So special.
right?
As growing in Philadelphia, a
Right.
property had the pleasure of them allowing me to be in there with a hard hat during construction and installing crystals into the walls of the treatment rooms and the spa had was really just such a highlight in my career, and also my tie to the city and the story, and to have a part in every little treatment at the spa, be it the crystals that the guests get or that they get when they check out of the hotel. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
gift. So it's fun always when friends are there and get to discover it as well.
I
I have a
felt you
favorite.
there.
That one has like a special place in my heart for sure.
It really is.
Connection,
Yeah,
definitely.
because when I was when I was there, I was like, "Oh, Rashia's with me. She's with me right now." It
Oh,
was
I
so
love that.
nice.
I love
Yeah, it's really magnificent. I mean, and of course, the Four Seasons in Maui. We could go
girl.
on.
Yeah.
My husband and I honeymooned at the Four Seasons on the Big Island.
I love
So shout out to Four Seasons.
Oh, we love it.
yeah,
They're pretty fantastic. So,
definitely.
well, Rashia, we could talk to you forever. So you're gonna have to come back on.
Oh, happy
Mhm.
to. It's
If
been so much fun.
I'd love to have you back on to
Appreciate you
talk more
both.
about
Maybe
what
we
you're
could,
doing.
yeah, maybe we could even sneak some behind the scenes IRL with you when you're doing an installation that we would be allowed to see in
Yeah, I will
process. So maybe
definitely
people
keep
can
you
really
posted.
see you in action with everything around you, and really we can see a little glimpse into the magic that you create.
Yes. No, we'll definitely
Yeah.
keep you posted. So let you know the
Yeah.
next time I'm in the city. I can maybe pop by the
Love it.
hotel and show you a little bit about what a crystal healing
Sure.
experience is like.
Yeah,
And
we
next
love it.
time, I'm coming to Costa Rica next time too.
Me too.
I
See
know,
you
I
there.
know. I know
We're
visited me
gonna
as
do it.
well, and now there's like a wait list. For the
I bet
merrier.
there's
I'm
a
like,
wait
please
list.
come visit me.
Yes. Listen, you let us know where you are, and we will be there for
I
sure.
That's
definitely
right.
will. Look
Thank
forward to
you.
it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Rashia.
Oh,
Thank you for being here.